Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good day. I am Aina Nadira binti Abdul Rahman with number matrix of 192388. We'll talk about the principle of indirect ELISA and the steps, okay, briefly, that are involved in indirect ELISA. While my partner, Maitasha Alia, will explain the other method, which is flow cytometry in the other video. Okay, so now let's start. Okay, first, what is ELISA? ELISA stands for Enzyme-Linked Immunosorbent Assay. So from the name itself, we can know that it is an immunoassay test with the usage of enzyme. Okay, so ELISA has several types such as direct ELISA, indirect ELISA, competitive ELISA, sandwich ELISA. But now I will talk about indirect ELISA. Okay. So, indirect ELISA is a method to either detect or quantitate the antibodies with the specific and known concentration of antigens coated onto the well by using two antibodies. Okay, so it is called indirect because it utilizes two antibodies, unlike direct ELISA, which uses only one antibody and that antibody is already conjugated with enzyme. Okay, but in indirect ELISA, the first antibody taken from the sample is unlabeled, and this antibody will bind to the specific antigens that have been coated onto the well, whereas the secondary antibody is labeled. It is labeled with enzyme. Okay, and this antibody will bind to the primary antibody producing color or light when react with the specific substrate. So, the steps are shown in the diagram here. Okay, firstly, the known antigens or antigens of interest are incubated with well plate to make it immobilized. Okay, and then wash it to remove the free antigens or the antigens that are not immobilized. Okay, and then add the first antibody, which is taken from the sample of the patient and it is unlabeled. Okay, this unlabeled primary antibody will then bind to the specific antigens that have been quoted earlier. Okay, if it is complement to each other. Okay, and then wash it to remove the unbound primary antibody. Okay, to reduce the background interference or background noise. Then add secondary antibody that has been conjugated with enzyme, and this antibody will bind to the primary antibody. Okay, then wash it again to remove the unbound secondary antibody, and now add substrate, and this specific substrate will react with the enzyme to produce signals, and these signals will be detected and measured for further analysis. Okay, so for the detection, it actually depends on the substrate used. Okay, if we use chromogenic substrate, okay, then we will detect color if the antibodies are present in the sample. For the quantitative analysis, the absorbance of the color will be measured and construct the standard curve to identify the concentration of antibodies present in the sample. Okay, but if we use light generating substrate, then we will detect light if the antibodies are present in the sample. For the quantitative analysis, measure the light output or chemiluminescence, okay, and then construct the standard curve to determine the concentration of antibodies present in the sample. Okay, these are my references, and I use Canva for creating this infographic, and I also use Microsoft PowerPoint to make this diagram. That's all from me. Thank you.